thanks for coming to the Western States information call. We're going to chat pre-race strategy. We have Nikki Kimball, Amanda Basham, and Kyle Curtin tonight. And what did I say? The stat was like 16 finishes among you guys, which is crazy. And then also, I just wanted to introduce Halo really quick. We're the ones hosting the call. But I'll go into that in a second. I just wanted to kind of give some quick intros. Amanda Basham is a ultra runner for Ultra. That's hard to say all at once. And I've known her for like, I don't know, over 10 years. We actually ran our first Western States together. Well, not together, but at the same time.
Were we sort of together? We were kind of close.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I think we were for a while.
Yeah, anyways. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, Amanda's done she's raced UTMB recently. You won, or you were on the podium at Canyons 100. Yeah, you had two little kids. And what else do you have next this year coming up?
Well, I think I'm going to get off the wait list for San Juan Solstice 50. So I'm really stoked for that.
Oh, nice. You'll be in our neck of the woods. Sweet.
Yeah, I'm down to 15. So I think if I just show up, I'll be able to do it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, but that's more for fun. UTMB is like the big one next.
Awesome. And then we have Kyle Curtin. He ran Western States, I think, in 2021, top 10 as well. And most recently, which I guess isn't that recent, but it's pretty epic. He has the FKT for the Colorado Trail. He's the first person to run under 7 days. It was like 6 days and 15 hours. And some of the people on this call were on his crew and paced him, and it was awesome. And he also likes biking really far lately because his poor foot was broken 3 weeks before Cocodona. So maybe he'll run that next year. And then I could spend an hour giving Nikki Kimball an intro. I think her resume is probably the stoutest resume in ultra running history, probably one of the top women ever in the sport. She has 10 top 10 finishes, 3 wins at UTMB, Hard Rock. She's also an awesome person.
I haven't won Hard Rock.
Oh, okay, but you're like, you crushed it.
I was second, but yeah.
But yeah, you've done pretty much every crazy competitive hard race out there. You've been doing that since the 90s. So you're pretty much a trailblazer in the sport. And you're an awesome person. I was so excited to have dinner at your house one night. When I came through Bozeman, it was like pretty epic. And yeah, so there's a lot of knowledge in here. So I'm just going to kind of start with the presentation, explain Halo real quick, and then we'll just keep going. All right. Oh, hold on. Okay. Sorry, Teams is so annoying. Okay, you guys can see that, right? Sweet. I just want to explain Halo really quick. Some of you have already booked through Halo, so you understand, but we're a hotel booking platform, but we work with brands and, hold on, I'm letting someone else in, brands and event organizers. We'll curate hotels to their experience. And then also, when you book with us, you get the lowest rate and all kinds of perks. We'll do these calls, we'll do happy hours. We'll have on-site community managers, like I'm doing the one for Cocodona. Amanda was our community manager for Black Canyon. Yeah, so it's just really community minded so that all the logistics are kind of right there. And you don't have to worry about like if other runners are going to be at the hotel. So that's basically Halo. And we'll start with our topics so that we can kind of keep on track. And then if anyone has any questions related to the topic throughout, I can't see you guys, so raise your hand, or maybe Amanda, let me know if you see anyone that needs to speak. And then we'll just kind of roll through the topics and have some time at the end for a Q&A. So, pre-race mindset and strategy, which can be really nerve-wracking. My first year when I ran it, I was pretty nervous. So I kind of wrote down some quick tips, but I wanted to kind of go through and ask Amanda, Nikki, and Kyle if they had any tips and kind of how to survive that first week. I know there's a lot going on, so don't want to overdo it. So yeah, Nikki, do you want to kick us off with kind of how you remember dealing with those first few days?
Yeah. And it's intense. And it's definitely changed a bit. But I think, it's so easy to get sucked into talking to people and socializing and just checking everything out and being on your feet and being in the sun. And, I think, going into the race, just being depending on what your goal is. If your goal is just to have fun, run a good race, be super social, have it as kind of a vacation 100, which is awesome. Then you can do that stuff. I think, if you're really wanting to nail it on that day, getting out of the sun, making sure, like Maggie wrote, you bring a chair, but also, maybe an umbrella, like something you just want to get out of the sun. You don't want to start Western being, having been dehydrated the day before, sunburnt. The sun up there is super strong, it's relatively high altitude. So that's the big one for me.
Oh, and for context, for people who haven't been there, that picture is of the pre-race meeting. I'm sure it looks very different when Nikki first ran it, but now I call it the media circus. And it gets pretty crowded in that courtyard where you have the pre-race meeting. There aren't a lot of places to sit. So yeah, that's where we mean bring your own chair. Don't bring your own chair during the race. You're not going to sit. Yeah, Amanda, do you have any thoughts on those first few weeks? I know you said you're going Tuesday with Justin. So you guys get to experience all of it.
Yeah, but I'm not racing, so I can socialize and do whatever I want. And that'll still be exhausting, even just being crew. So, I agree with Nikki. I think that's hard. It's hard because, at least every time I've went, I want to socialize and talk to people, and then you realize you've been out there for hours, and then you just get caught up in all of it, and you're so tired by the end of the day when you really should be recovering and basically sitting around. So you have to kind of try to avoid it. Obviously go to the meeting and then kind of get out of there is what I would say. The meeting used to be inside, and it's definitely busier now, but but at least it's outside. The inside building would make everyone fall asleep. It was so hot.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just got so crowded. I assume that's why they went outside. They started doing it outside.
It
So
was
at least that's
outside
nice.
in the early aughts as well.
Oh, it was. Okay.
Yeah, and then they moved it in.
Well, yeah, so that'd be definitely every time I did it, I think it was inside. And I always wished it was outside. So at least you get some fresh air, but it is pretty crazy down there and you just don't want to get sucked into things for hours.
Yeah, and they have TrailCon that whole week before, so if you get there early or your crew's running Broken Arrow, you might spend all day walking around, which is probably fine on Monday, Tuesday, but maybe getting closer to the race, you want to sit. Yeah, Kyle, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, the thing I was going to say is there's a lot of stuff going on that you don't have to go to, but you should definitely send your crew to. So there's the how to crew Western States, and you can send your crew to that, and that'll answer all their questions, so they don't have to bug you as much. You can send them to all the little tents and expos and everything else going on. So kind of use your crew that you have out there, and don't feel like you're obligated to do all that stuff. Definitely use the tools that you're going to bring out there. I ran it after COVID. It was the first race back after COVID for everybody, and then the year after that. So both times that pre-race meeting was outside, and definitely went longer than I expected. And it is high and it's hot. So I just reiterate what they said, just bring more water than you think.
Great. Thanks, guys. And we could kind of chat through the course. I don't have bullet points. I just put the course. So in case there's anything notable you guys want to call out. If anyone wants to take the beginning part of the course or chat through key points for them, could kick it off.
Who wants to go?
Sure, I'll start. So the course is kind of known for being a fast, runnable, hot course, but that's definitely not how it starts out. I'm not really sure what the snowpack is like this year, but you're starting in a ski resort and you run up to the high point in the course after the first climb, going up the escarpment area. So both times I ran it, there were patches of snow, and it was not hot for the beginning third of the race or so. The temperatures really pick up when you get to the middle area where the canyons are. That's going to be peak heat of the course. And when I ran it, I remember seeing a photographer that had a thermometer next to him that it said 110 as I ran past. So it does get exaggerated and really kind of compounds down in the canyons. So that'll be the hottest part of the course. And the real runnable part of the course is kind of in the final third. If you can somehow save your legs for that last little bit, it really is the fastest part of the course. You're at the lowest point of the course, and there's a lot of double track and even finishing on some pavement and downhill. So it is pretty fast at the end. Hopefully that was what you're looking for.
Yeah, that's great.
Can I jump in and ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Kyle, you said 110 when you saw that one photographer. Does the panel find that to be an extraordinary temperature, or should the runner be wise to sort of expect it to be in that range?
There's a historical weather on the Western States website where you can see what temperatures are like throughout the different years. So I think the canyon area is going to be about 10 degrees hotter than what the high for Auburn is going to be. So whenever the 10-day forecast comes out, you can kind of look and see what the high for Auburn, and just plus 10 on that is what you can expect middle of the race in the canyons.
And forgive me, I have one more. After the climb to the escarpment, the next 15 miles looks like it's flattish to downish, but I've heard that's pretty technical.
Yeah, that's more kind of mountain rugged running. So yeah, the elevation profile looks fairly flat, but I remember that being a fairly slow spot. There's even a spot where I remember using my hands and just being surprised that there was any point in the race where I put my hand on a rock to kind of get up.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I've always felt like the Western doesn't get enough credit for at least the first 50K of it being pretty mountainous. I mean, because you just think of it as being dirt roads and this flat track race in the woods, and that's really not how the first, for sure, 50K is. But even through the canyons, it's pretty verty, even though the canyons aren't super technical. Once you get past Robinson Flat, it's not super technical, but you get a lot of vert. And so, I mean, I'm pretty sure, I feel like everyone's heard it starts at Forest Hill, and I've always just found that as well, first of all, totally true. But if you're gonna run slower for the first half of it than the second half, ideally, because of how the terrain is. So it looks so easy on this course map, it's all downhill, but there's actually quite a bit of vert in that first half.
And I think
depending
Nikki,
on
you've won in years and considered the most brutal conditions and the hottest temperatures. Maybe you can chat about surviving that. We do have a cooling section coming up, but maybe talk through your parts of the course that you recall being tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the fire and ice year, or whatever it was, that year it had been hot for a long time. So the canyons get hotter if it's been hot for 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, because the rocks just sort of suck up the heat, and you can notice the difference. So there's that, and so definitely don't just look at the temperature in Auburn, because it's not going to give you a really good idea. You want to look at what's been happening. And then the upper part of the course on snowy years, it's really fun. But it depends on if you like snow or not. Your feet will get really wet. So, having shoes and socks if wet feet tend to be a problem for you at Duncan, or would be a good thing. Having that nice and early, because you are going to be wet. Like if it's a snowy year, you're going to be wet for a while. And those, I guess that's it.
Nice. Yeah. You guys have anything to add about course? Anyone have any other questions? And then we'll kind of move on to the next topic.
Well, so from what I've seen, I think it's pretty dry, isn't it, right now? Yeah. So it shouldn't be a snowy year, but I don't know all the details. But I know like for Broken Arrow, all their trails are dry. It's obviously a little different, but usually if Broken Arrow's dry, then Western States will be dry.
Yeah, I didn't think I thought they got a similar snow year to us, and then they got some like later snow in the spring that like bumped up their snowpack. But
yeah,
I imagine it's pretty warm there.
Yeah. They said that their trails were dry and fast, like ready for next weekend.
Yeah. So I imagine it would be very little snow, if any, right? I don't know if Sarah heard anything during the camp on the snow situation, but
yeah, I think it's pretty dry. I think the snowpack was pretty low to begin with for the year. Obviously we didn't run the section up to Robinson Flat, but yeah, I'm kind of doubting there'll be much snow. Maybe some snow patches, but I think the course will be pretty dry.
Oh, and I think one thing to add, I remember from crewing last year and just being at Michigan Bluff. Remember that there was a fire there a couple of years ago, so there's like no shade. So it feels very exposed there now. So it's just like something else to keep in mind. Oh, my other tip for crew, tell them to bring cash to Michigan Bluff, because if you're there during the day, they sell ice cream and the phone service down there is bad, so Venmo doesn't really work, and the crew wants ice cream. So just so you know, bring cash. Give them cash. Okay, nutrition and hydration, probably some of the most make or break part of your race. Yeah, whoever wants to kick it off or has some good tips, maybe some failures, let us know.
Well, I've had a lot of failures and I survived still, so you can come back to the
Actually, I do think it's valuable to note you've started 4 times, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so you have 2 DNFs, which I think is actually very valuable because I'm sure you learned a lot. So not to just call out the DNFs, you have 2 top 10s with 2 DNFs. Like that's the full experience. So
yeah, well, my DNFs were from injury.
Okay.
One was an injury I came into the race with. I think that was 2017. One in 2019 was an injury I got in the race. So it wasn't nutrition related, but I've definitely had some really bad races from bad nutrition. And a lot of it's just being like there's times I've showed up with no plan, or I have a plan but I don't do it. Basically, I'm just like, you start feeling bad and you don't want to eat or whatever. Like you just got to force those gels down because otherwise it is not going to go well. So, yeah, I think having your plan, having backups for the plan so that, you have options, have your crew have options out in case you change your mind, because no matter what, you get to an aid station, you get to your crew and you've got to eat something and you've got to hydrate, or else you're definitely not getting to the finish. And it's pretty pleasant if you do, I've really worked on that in the last couple of years. And actually, ultra running can be really pleasant if you stay very fueled. So it's very nice.
Yeah. I think that's why we're seeing a lot of course records broken every year. It's because we're feeling better. Also, don't get injured is another tip.
Yes. Yeah. Don't do that.
Nikki, I bet fueling and hydration, we were talking about this when we were catching up before this call, have come a long way in a couple of decades. And talk about that maybe in your experiences.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain the first year I ran it was 04, and and they would take bloods from us afterwards. And just at that point, what they were looking for was a protein that marker of muscle degradation. And if you're over 20,000 CPK, that's super high. And so the docs wanted us to know that, wanted everyone who had that to know in case you end up in the ED and, you know, they draw blood, they're gonna be like, oh my God, you're having a heart attack, because it's, you know, and that's not the case now. But I do remember I was on the high end, and so, you know, like I win the race, and then like the doctor's naming off all the names, and I'm on that. So it was a really great um, list to be on. And I think that was because I overhydrated. And, you know, it's so easy to overhydrate at Western because you're thirsty all the time. And at that time, everybody was just go through aid stations and they're like, drink more, drink more, drink more. And, you know, I was probably on my way to rhabdo. So don't overhydrate. Overhydration will, you know, destroy your kidneys. Underhydration, you're probably not going to die. You know, like people just like, we have a natural innate need to drink, and you can get to water. So, you know, watching for hydration is super important. But the symptoms for overhydration are sort of similar to the symptoms of dehydration. So so just if you're not thirsty, and, you know, don't drink extra just because you think you should. I think some people do that. And yeah, so drinking to thirst is kind of the best practice right now. It's the best we have. At all the Western states, big medical, at the big aid stations, they have medical where they can actually check to see where your electrolyte numbers are, so you can know if you're over or underhydrated. So I think, you know, that's an important thing. So if you start like just kind of not knowing where you are, that kind of thing, like talk to medical. I think that's super important. And medical is not there to pull you from the race. They don't want to pull you, and they won't pull you unless there's a compelling reason. And if there's a compelling reason, then you want to be pulled. So that's what I'd say.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Thanks, Nikki.
Hey, question real quick for the panel. Do you guys, I think this will probably come down to personal preference, but what does everybody say about using like a hydration fluid or just straight water? And do you mix those two, or at some point are you just straight hydration fluid?
I would say it depends on what you train with. Sorry, Kyle, you can go.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was going to say. I mean, for me, I use Tailwind when I was, just because I want all the calories, basically. So I think I pretty much only drank things with calories in it. This kind of morphs into like the nutrition / cooling strategy, but it all kind of goes together. Like the cooler you stay, the less you have to drink too. So just keeping ice, and I even froze my bottles. Even at the start, like it's a 5 a.m. start in the dark at a ski hill, but I still had 2 frozen bottles in my flask, and just kind of your body heat warms it up enough in time to drink. But really utilize all the ice. There's a crazy stat, something like, I'm going to mess it up, but somewhere between like 50 to 100 pounds of ice per runner on the course. So you can definitely utilize that while you're out there to stay cool and not have to drink as much, to kind of, like Nikki was talking about, have that risk of hyponatremia. And I also want to reiterate what Nikki said, that the medical people there are like, they are top notch. This is the pinnacle of the sport as far as medical people. And not only are they kind of there to help you, but also there's a ton of history, a ton of research. So you can kind of like see what they've done in the past. And they did used to like test people and weigh people and threaten to pull you from the course. But at least in that initial meeting where they got everybody together, they kind of like went over why they don't do that anymore. And it really kind of reiterates that they're here to help you, and they're here to get you to the finish line, and just do it in a safe way. And also they're very experienced people. A lot of these people at the aid stations have ran the race multiple times and have seen some pretty rough looking runners coming in, and they kind of know how to help you out. Even things from ice pops to just filling your pack with ice. And so if you don't know what to do, just feeling terrible, the people in the aid stations are a resource you can definitely utilize.
We should segue into I think cooling's next, because they kind of go hand in hand, keeping your core temperature down. And, that really helps your digestion be able to work a little bit better if you're not overheating and your, blood's not trying to keep your skin cool and not digest food. So, this is probably the most talked about thing for Western states. It's funny, there's so many hot races, but for some reason, everyone goes all in on cooling strategies for Western states. I've never figured that out. But I do like my little note where I wrote, I ran Western states because of Pam Smith running in cotton. I ran in a cotton shirt and cut holes in it, but people have been doing that for a really long time. They don't have to cost a lot. Those Nike shirts are cool. Maybe Sarah will be running in one. But I don't know. It doesn't have to be super expensive. You could make a cotton shirt. I didn't chafe too bad. Just bring lube. But anyway, we'll start with just kind of best cooling strategies and all the things. Amanda, do you want to kick it off?
Sure. Yeah, you don't have to have fancy stuff. I think in that picture, that was my first Western States. Well, a lot of people wear arm sleeves, which you can easily put ice in, and I think that helps more than most things. You can also shove ice in the back of your pack, or if you have an ice bandana, or if you can't buy a fancy ice bandana, you can put it in a buff and you just roll it around and it stays in there. But there's like key points on your body that you want the ice on. Like one is on your wrist, like right here. So when you have arms, like what I used with the arm sleeves was I rolled it down my arm and then I shoved the ice so that it was tight enough and I shoved the ice right there. And it's crazy. Like that area, if you have ice on it, it keeps you so cool. I don't know if neck just feels good, if that's actual like science that is a good area, but that's what everyone does.
Blood flow, so yeah.
It is, okay. And it definitely keeps you cool. I think that and your wrists are like the prime time spots. And I think even if people say, oh, it's a cold year, it's rarely actually a cold year. Even if it's 80 degrees out, it's hot, especially when you go in the canyon. So like you have to ice at Western almost every year. And if you start early, it's going to end better. Start early, keep doing it often. And then you'll have fewer hydration issues, all the things. It's all gonna work out a little better.
Maybe Nikki could talk to this, because I got this piece from the ice in the armpits. I think they tell you that in the movie, the presentation, the pre-race meeting. I think groin, I didn't put groin, but that's another place. Groin and armpits are like if you're in an emergency. Obviously, you can't really run with ice there, but if you're like in a pinch. Nikki, do you know if that's like accurate?
I'm not sure on the science of that. In the field, you're going to, if you can get ice on the person, you kind of put them in a tarp so it's so the water stays, and ice them, and kind of you make them into like an ice taco with the tarp. But that's the best we can do right now. And it's actually called the taco method. If you're out there in Western, there are so many aid stations and they can get ice to you really quickly. Like if you go down from hyperthermia, they can care for you pretty well. And I will add to Amanda, ice in the jog bra is really amazing. I found that to be incredibly helpful, because it would kind of stay there for a while too. So
men, get your sports bras, because it's another place you could put ice.
And I do have one ice story, that with cooling strategy story on that hottest year. So, we knew it was going to be hot, and I don't even remember where which river this was, but we were already getting hot. It was past Robinson, and I went down in, like instead of taking the bridge, well, I took the bridge across, and then I went down into the river and timed myself. And I promised myself I would stay in the water for 5 minutes, and I think I made it like 4 because all these men passed me, and I was just like, I wanted to be on the podium for the men. And so it was just really hard to watch them. But if I hadn't stayed there, I don't think I would have been on the men's podium. Like, I think that was huge. And interestingly enough, a runner from Tanzania who's run a bunch of times at Western States, he was the only other one who went down there with me. So like, you're not going to lose that much time by really cooling off. And it's amazing how much better you feel afterwards. And if you can just, so I know people have like, like kiddie pools and stuff at the aid stations now. But if you can really get yourself cool, and you can do that by getting the ice and water all over your body, that can save your race.
Full submersion.
Mm-hmm. I mean, that's what they do with bad water too. They bring the pool along in the vehicle, and people just dunk themselves at bad water. So, I mean, Kyle, yeah,
like
you said
Nikki
100 pounds of ice per person. So, I mean,
from the
get
race,
your money's
right?
worth of ice.
Nikki kind of referenced it, but there are actually a ton of water crossings throughout the race too, especially in the middle and towards the end. And I think it's worthwhile to spend the couple seconds. My strategy was just to like dump my hat in the creek or river and like scoop up as much water and like kind of dump it all over me as I put the hat back on. But there's probably a dozen opportunities throughout the race to like either sit in the water or dump your hat in the water, and definitely use those. Don't pass them by. And then I mentioned earlier too, I froze a few bottles the night before. So starting the race, and then the first couple times I saw my crew, I started with like totally frozen like ice cube bottles, and it's hot enough and it's right against your skin that they melt by the time you want to drink any of it. And just kind of an easy way to get a little bit cooler. But mentioning all this stuff, soaking down with water, I know we said it earlier, but you should plan on running the entire race with wet feet. It's either going to be snow at the beginning or getting wet at all the aid stations. I don't think my feet were dry at all the entire race. So just kind of keep that in mind. You can try to get people to like just bend over and dump it on your torso and not get it. But in my experience, there was no way to keep your feet dry. So just expect to be running in wet shoes the whole time too. And then the one last point I had was a lot of these aid stations are at a high point. So you'll leave the aid station and start to run down. And the first year I wore a vest, and I remember stuffing it with ice and then starting to run downhill, and it was just more weight than I'd ever put in my vest before, and just got a lot of bounce, and I like lost a lot of the ice basically as soon as I left the aid station, just because the first mile's downhill and it jostled out. So maybe some R&D on that of what works well to keep ice next to your body a little bit better. Maybe the arm sleeves are the move.
Thanks, Kyle. Okay, this is like the mental part, which is always fun. Kind of like mindset, obviously there's going to be a lot of ups and downs. What do you guys do to combat that? I mean, this is in our other call, Sarah heard this, Megan made a good point about like some of the folks who get into Western States, this may be the only time you ever run it. So you want to like enjoy it. You want to finish all those things. And obviously mental, the kind of mindset and everything is a huge part of ultra running. You could do a lot if you get your mind right. Nikki, I feel like you've overcome more than anyone in ultra running. What are some tips you have for people?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I don't know, the things that can be actionable. I mean, everybody who runs Western has done enough ultra running before to know that if you're going through a bad patch, you will get through it. And for me, when I would be in a really bad patch, I'd remember times of my life where I was in so much pain that way more pain mentally than anything I'd ever felt on a race course. And so juxtaposed to that, anything I've felt in an ultra is not, is just not as challenging as that. So that's one thing. I don't know if you remember labor pain or whatever. There's going to be something there for a lot of us. And then secondly, I like to just sort of put pain in its own box. I think that if you have an emotional reaction to pain, that can get you to mentally spiral downhill. So sometimes if it was the pain that was going to get me kind of feeling down, I just sort of think about pain as being just these neural receptors. Like, well, it's not real. It's just some, because it's just some nerve sending a signal to my brain. And, I think putting it that way, I don't have any emotion about the pain. You're going to feel pain, but you don't have to have emotion on top of that. So in terms of mentally preparing for the painful parts, that can be helpful.
Thanks, Nikki. Also, I'd like to note that it's very interesting, and Nikki, we've talked about this too. I was trying to find pictures to add into this presentation, and the lack of images from the earlier days in running is very apparent. Media has grown, and especially coverage for women. But yeah, I was hoping to find more pictures of Nikki, and it's crazy, but we've talked about that. So that's, I have this North Face ad of you getting your vitals checked after Western State.
Yeah, it wasn't like the media ever put us in the pictures. So
no,
yeah,
it wasn't. Yeah. Kyle, do you have any? I know you have a lot of good mental fortitude. I saw it on the Colorado Trail. So,
but I was just gonna kind of keep in mind pacing, because the back half of the race is really smooth compared to the front, and it is more runnable on the back half. The year that I got top 10, I remember I was in 82nd place at Lions Ridge Aid Station and ended up finishing 9th. So it's definitely, and I walked the entire way up the escarpment. Now, there's a couple little rollers that I probably jogged a few steps, but in essence, I walked the entire first 7 miles of the race or so. So kind of just keep that in mind. The first bit of the race can only ruin your race if you go too hard. You're not going to win the race in the first 10 miles. The second year I ran it, I remember that Adam Kimball was first to the escarpment, and I had a similar strategy of kind of just walking the entire way up. I don't remember place on that, but me and Adam finished one spot apart. So it doesn't define your race in the beginning, but it definitely can hurt you. So take care of yourself in the beginning, and that's kind of what I like to think about is you got a whole day out there. So think about that when you're eating, when you're cooling, when you're pacing yourself. It's just you're going to be out there a long time, so take care of yourself early and prioritize that over speed.
Adam Kimball, no relation to Nikki Kimball. Amanda, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, so I have ran a lot of races way too hard in the beginning, and then I pay for it in the middle, and then I come back by the finish, but I've wasted too many hours at that point. So what I have worked on is with these longer distances, like the 100 miles, having mantras for each section that kind of help me run it the way that I feel like I should run it. So when I just ran Canyon's 100 mile, I can't remember exactly where I had it, but I had things like chill, be patient. Be patient was something I'd have to tell myself for a long time. So that was my mantra for at least half the race. And then I had certain points where I knew I could pick it up. And so it could be pushing through the hard and maybe like check the point you're at and if you can push the pace a little more, so that just worked for me to have mantras on my little spreadsheet of my nutrition and jobs for the crew. I had my mantras at the same like different parts of the race that helped me with the effort. So then it helps you mentally work through it, also mentally stay calm enough to run the first half at a reasonable effort and not run it so hard that the second half you're walking. Yeah, so I found that really helpful.
Yeah, thanks. I'm gonna go into Q&A and then I'll stop sharing this. But this is, I think, Nikki, this is the year you got second and Pam was first in 2013. Awesome.
Yep.
Fun. I remember when I got into ultra running, and I remember Pam on the cover of the ultra running magazine being like, this lady's a doctor, full-time doctor, and she won. Like, pretty cool. But everyone needed full-time jobs back then, so it was very different. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing the screen and then we could do Q&A, and if there's any topics that we didn't cover or things you guys wanted to know. I did want to bring one thing up that was in our Cocodona call, and Jeff Browning said it, and I thought it was a really good piece of information that would carry on to any of the other races. Is like, he basically said you're pinning on a bib, this is your race, so you're responsible for your crew, and like they might mess up, but you just have to make sure they know, maybe one person's in charge. They know what stuff you need, or even if they forget something, like it's your race. And I thought that was like really important because, it's like, it's a solo kind of, a lot of training and all that, but I mean, it's kind of like a team effort, and it's your race and you're leading it. So, yeah, I thought that was really good. Does anyone have any questions?
Well, I'll say, so on the line of the crew thing. So I crewed Tara Dower at Black Canyon. That was Black Canyon. Yeah, at Black Canyon. And she gave everyone jobs, like very specific, wrote out jobs. And I never do that for people because I feel like I'm being too like, you must do this, But it actually was super helpful because the crew didn't have to think about anything. We knew what our jobs were, so all we had to do was like figure out in order how we were doing it. And so, it was just really helpful. It was super efficient. And then people have fewer excuses to mess things up for you.
Yeah, I think Robin's in here too, if that's the same Robin that's on our crew. We're on Tara Dower's crew, and every single person has their specific job. So when you see her, there's no thinking or talking or asking questions. We just do it. And yeah, I mean, I think it's fine to be really dialed like that, and kind of like, you also like, it's different racing in the very front to like, middle. It depends on your goal, or you just want to finish. You don't want to rush out of the aid station before you get the things you need, or if you even need to like reset, that's fine. Like, there's very different strategies for Tara Dower and then, someone in the back of the pack. So that's also, you don't need to like have the elite crew plan or anything like that. Yeah, did anyone add anything? Questions?
I have a question. What do the veterans think about drop bags? Do you guys have any advice on, this is something I always have in my drop bag that I never thought I would. I've recently decided I want to have a toothbrush in my drop bag. I saw somebody brushing their teeth at the SD 100 and I was like, oh my God, I'm going to have a toothbrush in my drop bag. But what else? Any other secret moves for drop bags?
Well, if you're a person who has feet issues with the wet feet thing, it wouldn't be a bad idea to have at least extra socks. Even if you put on your wet shoes still, like fresh socks. I had to change my shoes. I never do this. I changed my shoes 3 times at Canyon's 100 Mile. I've never changed my shoes in a race. I don't think ever. Or not my shoes. I changed my socks, sorry, because my feet were wet from mile 4. And it actually was super helpful and really nice and doesn't take that long to do.
And I would say anything that you absolutely need at an aid station, I don't know what that would be, but something that you just don't want to be without. It's great to have the crew have it, but your crew might not get to an aid station. And so, I think getting to an aid station, your crew's not there. Make sure you have whatever's extra in the drop bags. I think Western's one of those races that just doesn't lose drop bags. There's some races, where bears will eat all the food or whatever. I mean, that's definitely happened, but Western, you get your stuff. And it just not that you can just not freak out. Like if your crew doesn't get somewhere, it's so busy now. It's so hard to get to some of those aid stations, that just make sure you have that redundancy.
Yeah, putting headlamp in the one where you like your crew, just in case, your crew doesn't get there, at least you have a headlamp, because that's like one really important thing if it's dark.
I don't think I'm going to finish before it gets dark.
Yeah, so you'll need a headlamp. Only like a few people won't need it.
I'll be right there with you. This is kind of a theoretical question, I guess. Maybe feels silly to ask this group, but poles are allowed this year. If you could have used poles, do you have any idea like how you would have used them? I'm mostly nervous talking about how technical the first 50K is and using poles on the technical downhill. Without a ton of experience of using poles in the technical downhill, but also how handy they will be on the escarpment. So curious if any of you would even bother with poles, or if you would consider them unnecessary for you.
Yeah, you said you haven't trained with them a ton?
I've trained with them, but not highly technical, which is what I've only seen the last 70 miles at training camp and not that first 50K. Mm-hmm. So now I'm wondering if that's going to be a little over the top for using poles.
Yeah, I feel like
I would
they're more
say
cumbersome
probably
on the downhill. Do you think?
Yeah.
And then from my old age perspective, I can add something to that. Like, no way would I have ever used poles at Western when I was racing. But at 55, I'd freaking use poles. I mean, like I don't feel the ground as well. My knees hurt on downhills, and poles have been remarkably helpful on downhills since my patellofemoral joints have been arthritic. So there's that.
You could, actually, do you guys know if you start with them, do you have to keep them the whole time, or can you like drop them off, pick them up, drop them off? Does anyone know that? I should know, but I would assume I could drop them with my crew at least. So
yeah, I don't think this is UTMB rules or anything.
Them.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So if I were you, I wouldn't start with them, but I'd probably have them with your crew. And I'm a big pole person. Ever since I started using poles, I love poles. They are so nice. But I would not use them at Western. But I would potentially have them with my crew in case you just end up like really being like worked at the end and you just need some help, or like even midway, if you're like, man, I really need some help, you're just having a rough patch, and you can pick them up and take them.
Yeah, there is a mile in the canyons that it's over 1,000 feet in a mile going up. So there are steep bits in this course. But I don't know. If I was going to use them at all, I would use them at the start. Just the biggest climb of the race. That's probably where I would prioritize poles if I were to use them.
Lauren, you got every answer, so that's probably not useful.
Yeah, well, that's what I realized. This is a first, so there's no historical evidence. Well, so from a pole perspective, yes, I would use them at the beginning, but I don't think they're necessary, is why. So I think they're more of an emergency thing at Western.
I also think they're helpful if you're really used to using them. Like, I think if you're not super, you could get, I don't know, you could get blisters on your hands somewhere because you're not used to it. Depends on like, I'm the same way Amanda is. I was like poles, and then I started training for Barkley, and I was like, I love poles, and I live in the San Juan, so I still love poles, but yeah, if you're not like used to it and it might be more cumbersome, but yeah, maybe as an insurance plan, like Amanda said, just kind of have them.
Yeah, so I remember when I was racing Broken Arrow a couple years ago, I went so fast past JP Giblin because he was using poles for like the first time ever in his life. And it was definitely slowing him down. And I was like, dude, get those poles out of here. And I had poles. And I'm like, you do not need to be using poles. You don't know how to. And so he didn't use them the rest of the weekend, and I never saw him again. So yeah, it's only helpful if you know how to use them.
Have you guys ever seen that comparison they did the one year at UTMB where they had Jim Walmsley and Killian Jornet running together, both using
Oh,
poles?
yes.
And Killian is like a work of art, and then there's Jim. It's just like, makes a difference if you're used to them.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you. Now I have a lot to think about.
Yeah. Well, don't overthink it. I mean, you got a lot of other things to think about. But I mean, just to kind of wrap up, if anyone ever thinks of a question, please feel free to email and I can get you an answer. But I think all of us will be out at Western States. You'll see Nikki at check-in. I'll be at TrailCon all week and around. You can find me at the Halo tent if you come to TrailCon. And Lauren, let me know if you've decided polls or no polls. And Kyle, you'll be out there. I think you're driving with me because we're down and driving. And Amanda will be there. So we'll all reunite in Olympic Valley in a couple weeks. So I'm going to stop the recording, but I appreciate everybody.
Hey, thank you all very much. It was super helpful, and what a